Hello and welcome to another episode of the Everything's Been Done podcast, Conversations in Cycling Subculture. I'm your host, Dustin Klein, and today's episode is brought to you by Equality for All, Justice for George Floyd. Today's guest is a very special one. She is a pro cyclist, road warrior, and a plant whisperer. Please join me in joining me. Oh, also, you can find her on Instagram at Ivy Audrain. Please join me in welcoming Miss Ivy Audrain. Welcome, Ivy. Damn it.
Hi, Dustin.
God, I did that twice.
It's all right.
Whatever. Fuck. How's life? How you holding in? How you holding out?
I'm doing okay. It's a weird time, and the global pandemic is weird, and our social climate is weird, and I'm hanging in there, man. How about you?
Yeah, same. It's like compounding on itself. Everyone's like angry and then angrier and broke and violent, and some people are loving.
Do you remember New Year's Eve on 2019 and being like, yeah, this is going to be my year?
Yeah.
How foolish we were.
All of it, because we're like 2020, perfect vision. Fuck, it can't go wrong. There's no way. Hey, you is that a cough? You want to use my thing? Here. What could possibly go wrong?
You want a sip of this? We can share.
Yeah, here. Hand me that. And what if that'd be good. Yeah. Well, I guess I wanted to get a little context for you. Or just get the bicycle wheel rolling.
Yeah, this is a bicycle, culture podcast, right?
I mean, we should at least touch on it.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm curious of what your first memory of cycling is.
Sure. So, my folks actually met bike racing and raced through a lot of my childhood and adolescence. It's pretty wild. I can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure that they met on one of the Tulsa Tough courses on Crybaby Hill. So they raced a lot in my childhood, and my first memory of being at a bike race was being like a 5 or 6 year old race kid. Like all the race kids would hang out in like some field near a parking lot together while our parents would go race for several hours, and we would just be there like unsupervised, keeping each other company while our parents raced. And I remember just like not liking having to hang out in these like dusty fields with these other kids while my parents were off racing. But yeah, that's my first memory of bikes.
Like from you were conceived on a bike ride. It sounds like it's
possible. Can't confirm. Yeah, it definitely had a big part of had a big hand in my upbringing. And like I have these memories of my brother and I in the back of those Toyota vans, whatever like the late 80s models were. They're like very pointy
Prevas.
Yeah, Prevas. Yeah.
Something
my folks like took all of the seats out of the back of one of those vans and just put a mattress back there. And there were like no speed limits on the Montana highways when we were kids, and they would just like throw us in the back of this van, bouncing around on this mattress, driving to and from races. And so yeah, there was a lot of bike race attending when I was a kid, but never any racing until I was older.
Wait, where did they put the bikes on the van with the kids?
An enormous rack up top.
On the top.
And they would often, it was like they maybe had like 12 bikes up there, because they would drive their teammates' bikes, and their teammates would like caravan or carpool in like little sedans with like 4 or 5 of them packed in there, and then my folks would like drive everyone's bikes.
Whoa, were your parents ever professional racers or?
My mom was, and my mom, she raced Orida, which was like one of the biggest women's races in the early 90s, I think. And she actually up until recently still raced as a Cat 1, and we got to race together quite a bit. And she has like led me out to win some of my most memorable races before she kind of stopped racing. She still rides a ton, and we ride together, and she like has a avid spin class following. Like she teaches spin classes now. Wow. And she does a lot of mentorship and loves to get people on bikes. But we haven't raced together in a few years.
That is fucking sick. I can't believe you raced with your mom. She's like the ringer. She's like, oh, follow me, stick with me, kid.
Yeah, no, she was a lead out, and one of my favorite memories of a bike race ever, the Tour of Walla Walla, which was a bigger regional stage race in Walla Walla, Washington. She led me out for this crit, and it was like, it wasn't just a lead out, and it's like there are a lot of people that ride with their parents and some people that get to race with their parents, but like to race at this level and to like execute tactic with a parent is insane. And like she started this lead out like way too early, and it was fields were like quite a bit bigger. Women's fields in like 2014, 15, 16 were definitely better attended. So there were probably 40 or 50 women on this year. And she started her lead out with like almost an entire lap to go of this like kind of longer crit course. And she was like riding me off of her wheel with like a half a lap to go. And when you're getting a lead out and you're a sprinter, you like have cues that you give to your lead out, you know, to tell them to pick it up or to like keep it steady or to like back off because they're riding you off of their wheel. And I had to tell my mom like a couple times in this last 3/4 of a lap to like back it off because she was going to ride her sprinter off of her wheel. She was like that strong as a 54-year-old woman. Whoa. And she led me out, and I ended up winning the race, and I won. And I turned around and looked, and there's like 2 other women, a couple bike lengths back, and my mom a few more bike lengths back, and then the entire field is nowhere in sight. So like she decimated this entire Pro 1-2 women's field all by herself in a matter of like 3/4 of a lap with like teams of multiple riders. Like it was just like she and I. It was definitely my favorite memory of bike racing with her.
Yeah, talk about a bonding moment. Holy shit.
There were a couple tears after that race.
Yeah. Wow, that's remarkable. I couldn't have like made that. I guess I'd never even thought something like that would be possible. Of course it's possible, but like wow. Yeah. I don't know. That's like a really cool story.
Yeah, it is. And I didn't think it was something like that would, I mean, when I first started riding and when it was so like challenging for me and when it didn't come naturally for me, especially in the first like couple years, I definitely didn't perceive that to ever be possible. Like I didn't think I was ever going to be on her level, let alone like racing with her. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
Did she have a hand in you getting into starting to race? Because I don't think you didn't like bike racing for a while, and then eventually you ended up getting into it.
Yeah, I just like didn't like bikes as a kid. Like I was very pink and frilly and sparkly and didn't want to try hard and get dirty and get sweaty. And so my folks like tried to get me to ride bikes, but they weren't very successful. And then I ended up playing college volleyball for a couple years, and it's not like a sustainable lifetime sport, and I wasn't super healthy, and I was had knee injuries and was overweight and not healthy. And my mom came to my college town where I was going to school, and because there was a bike race there, and she was just getting back into it. She had stopped for a handful of years and was like, I'm gonna try racing again. And so I got to go watch her do this race and like help her in the feed zone, which was absolutely mortifying. It was, I thought they were gonna like stop and pull over and have a snack and like take a break in the middle of this road race and be like, "Ooh, let's all just pull over and
Competition's tough today, let me tell you."
Yeah, let me just crack a banana. Anyone got any, let's put a layer on. No, it was, they obviously just like zoomed through this feed zone, and I can't believe I successfully handed her a bottle without dropping it or like hurting anyone. But it made me really want to try bike racing and try something different. So, she set me up on my first bike and, put me in my first pair of clipless pedals, and it really taught me how it works and how to bike race and all of it.
Did you end up on one of her old bikes, or did you guys find?
Yeah, I did. The first ride I did was on her, like, she still has it. It was one of the like early 90s Specialized Olay that it was like one of the first carbon bikes that they made, and it had like it has all these blue anodized bits. Like the bottle cage bolts are blue anodized, and like the quick release skewer is blue anodized. Oh, cool. And it was, that bike was way too cool for me to be the first bike that I went on a ride on.
She still has it though? Like, is it just in the quiver? She's like, I just rode that yesterday.
No, it's hanging up in the garage. I think she just can't let it go for sentimental reasons.
Yeah, good. I was gonna say you should put that fucker up in your spot. Like, I mean, I think bikes of like, they're like functional art, especially after they've been used, because they have all these like wrinkles and like wear, they have like life all over them.
Yeah.
And it's like so cool, white wall with this awesome, and that bike has like a ton of history for it's like a family heirloom.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah, I like that my bikes have like paint chips and scratches, and like I've ridden them,
Yeah, you got to earn all that stuff. It doesn't come for free. I mean, I guess they don't cost anything, but you got to get out there for them to happen,
Yeah.
Does your mom live in Missoula also?
Yeah, she just lives a couple miles away, which is really nice. Yeah. It when I moved from Portland back to Montana, having family nearby was definitely a draw for me, but in reality, like, I just wanted to pick the best mountain town that I could think of that was fairly affordable and had like a little bit of culture and had rivers and hot springs and quick, easy access to trails and gravel roads, like from in town. And Missoula was like not only one of the only things that I could think of, but like the best thing that I could think of. So it's nice that I also happen to pick a town that my family is all near.
Yeah, that's hold on, I'm like making travel arrangements. Don't go to Missoula, it's amazing.
It really is great here, and we have the best local trail association called MTB Missoula, and I've gotten to do some trail digging with them, which has been so cool to like have a hand in helping build these trails that I use and ride, and to like work on them and make them better. And it makes me appreciate the trails that I ride so much more now, because even like a simple bench trail, like now upon riding one, I'm like, those take like 2 days to build. Like, this is different.
That's really cool. And then that perspective is so cool, where you're like, I get to help out with them, which is really interesting. Around here, there's you might know an NWTA or something. There's like this trail building association that is like the polar opposite of it. They're like, if you don't help build the trails, you can't ride them. And it's this very like, it feels very confrontational. It's like, okay, I don't even want to mess with your thing if you're going to be so many rules about it. It not to get too in the weeds on it, but that perspective of like, I get to help. Like, hey, you can help if you want. Like, seems a little more like positive.
Yeah. Well, and I get like, one of my good buddies is the trail designer, and like, I get why someone would get pushed to like having that perspective, because like these guys just put their like heart and soul into like well, it's so hard to find land to build trail on, and people just take it for granted. They're like we build on Marshall Mountain, which is a ski resort right outside town, and it's actually private property, and like we're lucky enough that the owner is like, yeah, build trails.
Sick.
Like, have all this land, do what you want.
Whoa.
Like, that's unbelievable. It's so hard to find land. Like, with Forest Park, like, it's hard to just even get bikes to be allowed to be somewhere, let alone design and build and execute your own trails. And yet there are still people out there that are like, this trail is too challenging. Like, this new feature you put in is not rideable. And we're like, oh, well, trying to stay true to like the black diamond rating of this trail, and like, sorry. And so I think that, a lot of trail builders have been pretty badly burned with like criticism by folks that aren't out there building trail and don't know how hard it is and how inaccessible land to build trail really is. So I get why some of those organizations are bummed and burned, for sure.
There is a trail rating system out there that you guys use?
Yeah, there is.
It same as ski hills?
Yeah, I think so.
Green circle,
I don't think they utilize,
square.
Like the double, how like ski runs sometimes are like double black diamond, or like.
Well, it's green circle, blue square, black diamond.
That's right.
But
yeah,
you guys use those 3?
Yeah, I think does Trail Forks use? I think the reason that which came first? Did Trail Forks come first and start rating them that way, or did trail builders start rating them that way first?
What's Trail Forks?
Dustin, you don't know?
The egg came first, 100%. Yeah. This is why too.
Trail Forks is a sick app that local folks. I think there are local administrators that help upload and rate and document these. I don't think they do it for pavement. Or shoot, maybe they do multi-sport and multi-disciplines. But for riding mountain bikes, like they document and rate and report like current conditions on mountain bike trails and gravel roads. And it's a really cool network when you're especially in a town that you haven't been before, to see like, what are these good trails? How can I make this a loop? Is this within my ability level? Lots of people put in like pictures of like there's a drop on this trail, like don't ride it if you're not comfortable. And it's great for people to like go find a new trail and be comfortable riding it with that kind of resource. It's really cool. It's
like a wave report for mountain biking, or I don't know if those are called wave app
for like surfers.
Yeah, what did I meant to say surfing. I don't know if I said that, but yeah. It sounds like it's like a more curated version of Ride with GPS. I mean, it's kind of different, but Ride with GPS you can use. So things like that are really good if you're traveling, because you're like, oh, this new place, like where can I go?
And it's also good because you can like go offline, and if you don't have phone service, you can still know what trail you're on.
It uses GPS then?
Yes.
Yeah, massive.
Which is clutch, because turns out a lot of places where there's gravel roads and mountain bikes, there isn't great phone reception. So
yeah, it generally goes hand in hand. Like, you want to ride the good stuff, no Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you started racing with your mom kind of, and then like, did you kind of just got hooked on it? Did you know that you wanted to? Did you have a vision of becoming like a professional? Was that a goal, or did it just kind of like the path just sort of go that way?
That's tough. I didn't know that I wanted to go that way. I definitely didn't know it was possible. And I didn't even know if I wanted to keep racing bikes forever, because it was so devastatingly brutal for me the first couple of years. There are, some professional cyclists are lucky enough to, excel at it really quickly. They have backgrounds in like endurance sports, and it just comes really naturally to them. And, they get a lot of joy from it and find a lot of success in it really quickly. And that was not my story at all. I was not just like bad at bike racing for the first couple of years, but like the last person to finish the race for the first couple of years. And like when you're doing a road race and you're like riding alone for a couple hours, sometimes it can be devastating. And I didn't know that I wanted to keep doing it, but I just did. There was something about the potential to keep getting better, and kind of like trusting that I was going to get better one day, that made me want to keep trying. So I did, against my better judgment maybe.
And it seems like you probably did get incremental gains throughout the process or throughout the journey. Like it wasn't just like 2 years later, like, okay, now I'm getting better. Like it's a gradual incline plane that like, oh, I'm getting better. Were you noticing those results or that improvement?
Yeah, I was, and while it was gradual, it was non-linearly gradual.
Oh,
so
interesting.
While there was like a comprehensive trend of slowly getting better and better, there would still be like one thing that felt really good, followed by 2 or 3 things that just like absolutely sucked. I think that's, I guess, important for anyone to keep in mind. That's like not even just trying racing, but just trying to get into riding bikes, that like it's not just gonna like get better each time you ride or get better each time you race. Like it's not a linear path to feel good about riding bikes.
Right. And like it makes me think about how it's like the journey. Oh, I'm almost losing this train of thought too. So it's, sure, there's like you say, like, oh, this thing's doing good, but these 3 things aren't doing good. So then it sounds like it almost becomes like a mind game, and this can kind of fold into any discipline or practice someone has. Is it's easy to focus on the stuff that's not working. Like it's so easy to do that, and I think that the practice, like it's like working out a muscle in our mind that's like, okay, but this thing is happening, and like it's not all bad, and also taking moments to look back, like, oh shit, like I was so horrible at this a while ago. And you're, as you progress through anything, you're kind of always at that edge of like the worst point it can be at any given moment, because it's always generally going to be getting better, which is just kind of an interesting thing. Like, oh, like, so if you're always at that like the crappiest point you can be at any given time, it's almost like a paradigm shift of like, what, it's not about being the worst version of this is in a sense also the best version of it that you could ever be too at that point, because in the future it can kind of go any which way. I might have just painted myself into a corner.
No, I think you painted yourself into talking about how that could and does relate to like the creative process, and to just like trying something new, and like having that perspective about bike racing, and understanding that it's not linear and there are going to be failures, and having a failure doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong or that it's not what you mean it to be, but it's just part of your process, creative or bike racing or another endeavor. Does that make sense?
100% too. And then there's like this famous quote of a failure is an opportunity to learn, which is like a great philosophy to go off of. Again, it's like a practice that's really difficult to apply in real life, because it's like, oh, it feels gross, or it's not as good as it could have been, or it was at one point. But it really, if we don't fail, we don't improve. And it's so hard to like understand that in the core, like understanding that, mentally, like, oh, sure, no, I get it, totally. But to like encapsulate that is it's way easier said than done.
It is, and it's not as easy as just like convincing yourself that process is okay. And I mean, it's great that you're talking about it, because like, as I've said to you before, like I see you as a successful, incredible, talented artist. And like, I had no idea that this was something that like someone like you goes through too. And so it makes me less fearful to, you know, try something new or like be comfortable in my own creative process. And it's worth visiting.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of this like feeling of discomfort, like being okay with discomfort, which is uncomfortable. Imagine that. Like,
And a lot like bike racing, like maybe, or riding your bike, like maybe exclusively that is what bike racing is like understanding that you're going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to hurt at times, and trusting that like hopefully you're a little less uncomfortable than everyone else in the bike race, and that discomfort is part of success, and sometimes if you're extremely lucky and the stars align, part of winning.
yeah, that's a really interesting one because it seems like I would assume it's almost always like uncomfortable because it's so you're kind of like pushing yourself to that edge. Like you're kind of building up to this moment of like a race where you're like, okay, like everything to this training sucks too, but racing, which I don't race, so I'm talking a little out of school, is like blasting into the hardest version of that to get your greatest potential out of it. And then you're just like, it's kind of, you never know if you're going to win. Oh, yeah. This is actually an interesting one. So some people that are really competitive, they'll have this thing about, and I'm curious how this is for you. Like I've heard that people say, I dislike the feeling of losing more than I like the feeling of winning.
Well,
do you ever like, so these people, it's like so competitive, so intense that, and there's many ways to look at that, you know, thing, that cup of, is, you know, there's multiple perspectives on it. You know, some people just like to push themselves. Some people really want to win, but you know, they understand if they don't. But there's like this funny theme of like highly competitive people that are often really winning a lot, is it kind of cracks into this level of, it's like mentally unhealthy because they're so focused on winning in like a gross way. It's not even like I love winning. It's like I said, like I hate losing so much that it's only it demon chasing sort of thing. Running away from them.
Yeah, no, that's completely accurate. There can be a really unhealthy approach to being competitive and wanting to not lose. And if I'm being honest, that was a big driver in me for racing for a handful of years. And you know, that competitive part of me really had to shift away from measuring my success in just winning and, you know, not losing to something more of like my success can be measured in my effort and, you know, doing the best that I can, as cheesy as it sounds, and just like, seeing how hard I can push myself. And, you know, it takes a lot to really shift from that. It feels toxic. And it feels like it's driven from fear also of not wanting to fall short and not wanting to feel inadequate. And so there were so many layers of that type of approach to cycling and to racing and to just like living my life and working and engaging in relationships that I wasn't motivated to seek and engage in things that were life-giving, that were enriching. I was just fear motivated of not, I just didn't want to fail and I didn't want to fall short. And so that meant winning. And that was the only way in which I could feel really successful in bike racing, is not just winning, but not losing. And it manifested itself in a lot of really bummer, angry, insecure ways.
Yeah, and I feel like it seems so easy to kind of slip into that, it almost like identifying with winning. It's like a drug. Because when you win, that's the high, right? And then you kind of, I don't know, maybe, did it feel like you kind of get, I don't know if did you feel like you got used to that, or that you, like, it's like almost like, oh no, like I never want to let this go? Or I'm trying to understand it, like the fear of not ever having that again?
Yeah, the fear of not having it again, the fear of, understanding that I expect it of myself now, and what will happen to me when I no longer succeed. Which, like I said, I measured success in just winning. And so it was like, what's going to happen when I stop succeeding? Or if I move to the next level and I don't succeed there, does it mean I'm not good enough? Does it mean like I should just quit? Like, does it mean I shouldn't even try and just like stay doing local races and not even put myself out there and, exert that kind of energy if it means that if there's any chance that I could lose?
This is like a really interesting subject, because I feel like I don't hear many people talk about this. It's like the poison of winning, or the, like, this is sort of a weird analogy, but like the Midas touch. Like, once you've got the thing, it's like it starts to corrupt them, or like the precious, like, and it starts to corrupt your mind. You're like, no, I need to do everything to keep this, and it infuses your perception of reality. It kind of toxifies your one's mind. It sounds.
Yeah, it did. It made me afraid. It made me fearful and insecure, to try to do anything that I wasn't sure of. I was afraid to like put myself out there in so many ways, like to move somewhere new, to, like I said, go to a race that I wasn't sure that I would do well in, to even like do rides that I knew would be hard. I didn't want to do. Like, I would, be invited on group rides with friends that I knew would be like a ton of climbing, and climbing has never felt natural to me. And I would just not go and miss out on experiences and friendships and connections and so many things in my life, because it was a toxin. Like, it made me afraid to fail, basically.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because it seems like from an outside perspective, it could also have this potential to make somebody like ultra confident, like overconfident, like I win, like I'm the best, like I'm so good at everything, which is another version of that poison, actually.
Yeah.
It's
because I was safe. Because I stayed in the domains that I knew that I could control. Because I didn't do anything that I knew that I couldn't control. I didn't want to go to big races because I knew that I would win everything locally. So, like,
interesting.
I wouldn't go on rides where I knew that I wouldn't do well. So it was in my control. Does that make sense?
100%. And it sounds like, again, that like outside perspective, hindsight is 2020, that it sounds like what would have been really healthy is to like lose a race, do something that you're not good at, like do some bad things, feel that discomfort, to sort of like to realize even that, like, oh, maybe this discomfort, it's not going to kill me.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened. Is I had some regional success and won a national calendar race, and got picked up by a pro team, and
Wow.
just like got my shit rocked, like repeatedly. And I was a contracted rider on a professional team, and I can't just call up my director and be like, oh, I don't feel safe and comfortable go into these races where I know I won't win, so don't put me on the roster. Like, you'll get fired.
Right.
So I just had to, reevaluate and remeasure the way that I saw success in bike racing, which ultimately was probably my demise, because I didn't still have that, I wasn't willing to compromise that my success should be in just like gauging my effort as, doing the most that I could and trying as hard as I could. And that was okay, because pro bike teams don't measure that as okay and success. Ultimately, those kinds of scenarios of like being thrown into having to fail over and over and over again is necessary to change your perspective.
And is that kind of how you felt for you? Is that kind of helped untie the knot, like melt that block, or did it just tie a different knot?
Maybe a little bit of both. I think it more tied a different kind of knot, less of, it fostered less of that part of me that was felt safe and comfortable winning, and created a different kind of feeling of a different kind of insecurity and a different kind of feeling of falling short. And being put in that setting just affected so many areas of my life, of being like an angry person that wanted to control every part of their setting, to instead being someone that was insecure and afraid of falling short in a really sad in more of a like sad way than an angry, fearful way. And so it took a lot of leaning on people in my community and some really wonderful folks in my life to like work that helped ask me the right questions of what I thought it would look like to feel good about bike racing, and in turn feel good about my entire life, to get me to this different perspective of being okay and happy, just trying my best.
That's interesting. That's a cool idea or angle of like, okay, right now is uncomfortable, life is not happy, this and that, but what would it look like if it was? And was that kind of like the crack in the door that was like, because then once you started to like dream or vision of like what's possible, and it's almost just like a mental shift. You're like, oh, what if it was like just being okay with where I'm at, or like having satisfaction in my day to day, or whatever the things are that make life feel good.
Yeah. And engaging in those kinds of dialogues when I was, when I was so hurt and felt so discarded, and people asked me those questions, really taught me a lot about how to love on people in my life now, when it's not as simple as me just saying like, you have this problem, here's some empathy, here's what I think you should do to fix it. A lot of it is asking those kinds of questions, where that really fosters healing for me, for my process, especially when like, I'm a person that really could have benefited from a therapist, and, not having that resource be available or feasible for me was really tough. And I know that I'm really lucky to have had that experience and to, have that kind of growth in that moment. Very lucky.
Have you ever read many, the next best thing to like a therapist is like reading self-help books, which self-help always is so stupid sounding to me. It sounds like so embarrassing, but that shit fucking works 100%. Like, were you ever able to like be exposed to just like, because, for the longest time I didn't even know like, oh, you can read books about this stuff. Like, who knew? Yeah.
I think that, the same way that people have really different learning styles, like
Ah,
some people are kinesthetic learners and need to do a puzzle in order to understand how to do a puzzle. And other people are visual learners and they can see someone else assemble a puzzle and then they can do it themselves. Or some people, can have instructions read to them and then without seeing it, they know how to solve the puzzle.
totally.
And for me, I'm just not that kind of learner where I can, and it's completely possible that I haven't had the right resources presented to me, but that's not my kind of learning style to read about those kinds of instances, where we can apply this kind of method for healing and this and that, and these are the things that you can think of and do. It was really more of like an engaging dialogue with people that know me and care for me that really helped me.
Yeah, right. Like that human element, that energy transfer, like love at the simplest version of it. Like,
And a give and take, asking questions to one another, and an active dialogue, as opposed to just a very one way, like, I'm going to take this thing in and process it myself. That's hard for me, and I'm sure hard for a lot of people.
that's really interesting too. And I love the metaphor of like the back and forth is like yin and yang, like energy currents of like electricity, positive, negative. Like it's like this cycle, life and death. When we eat something that's alive and it's dead, and it's like this constant like give and take, back and forth. Uh, I just like when that shows up in many different ways, consistently in all these different forms. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet.
Was the it, I don't never raced on a team, but a lot of this stuff you were talking about was with road racing, and was part of the, or how much of the of like the in the dynamic of the fact that, from what I understand, road racing is like there's the like the leader and everybody else that supports the winner. Like, is that kind of play into the mind games of it, where you're like, I used to be winning a lot and now I'm just supporting this person, or not? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you were still the main person. I don't know.
I mean, sometimes I got opportunities to be the main person, which like presented its own challenges. But
Mm.
yeah, you're right. There are definitely a lot of different roles amongst a team. There are road captains, there are GC riders, that we're protecting. There's people that get in the early break. There are people that are reserving themselves for a lead out. And then there's a sprinter that like really, really reserves themselves. And I did get to ride in that role as a sprinter, it was like crippling. Like you just have like fleeting moments where you have to make a choice, and if you make the wrong choice, it's like, well, I just conserved all of my energy for this 3.5 hour race, and it came down to a 3.5 second moment that I blew it. Like, and so it was completely yeah, the pressure was unbelievable, and it kind of like made me like cyclocross so much, I think, because there were so many more moments for you to mess up and then make it right, like
Ah.
you can not ride a corner as good as you should have, or like, if there's a little feature that you have a hard time riding, like you can try to ride it better and better each lap, and there are like all these moments where you can fail and succeed, and not do good and do better the next time. So I think that's why I like cyclocross so
And then did
much.
cyclocross come? That's kind of where, is that where it entered your life? Is it sounds like maybe there was like this Indiana Jones moment where it was like, oh, maybe I'll just flip into this a
Yeah,
little more.
yeah, very much so. I didn't really dabble in cross. I just like completely dove into it, because
Oh.
the moment I tried it, I was like, this is it. I like this. I like this. I like the amount of time that this effort is. I like how engaged I have to be, with road racing so much. Like, it's hard to stay engaged. For me, it's hard for me to stay focused and like stay engaged, not only for those really long races where a lot of stuff is happening that you're not supposed to be a part of, and you're just supposed to sit and wait. That was hard for me. And, the training that came along with that was really hard too. So then I started doing cyclocross, and the training was so much different and harder and more engaging and more fun, to be honest. And so naturally the racing felt that way too. It was more engaging and more fun. And it was easy just to make a really quick transition. And I kind of dropped road and went pretty well all in for cyclocross.
And did you go straight into single speed with that, or did it kind of, you play around for a little bit?
Yeah, my first cross bike was a single speed, and I have a geared bike that I love riding and I train on a ton, but for racing, there's something just so pure about a single speed bike that makes me race better, I think. Just because if something is hard and a section is hard and I wish I had an easier gear, I just have to deal with the choices that I made and ride it out, and it makes me a better racer, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. There is something, I'm actually surprised that single speed isn't more of the main version of cyclocross, because it really does seem to pair very well. That's obviously a pretty general statement, because there's so many kinds of courses and stuff too. Do you have to are you changing your gearing on each race?
Yeah,
kind of a novice question.
No, it's all right. It totally depends on the course.
Totally.
one gear that there's a really hard course, Rolling Thunder here in Montana, that has a ton of elevation gain, and it's so tough because there are flat sections, but then another side of it is basically going up and down this hillside, and so it's so hard to pick a gear sometimes because you have to feel like you have enough gear to climb comfortably, and you have to have enough gear to make up some ground on the flats if you need to. And especially if you're racing against people with gears, you have to really think about those decisions carefully, and also know yourself as a rider. Know if you do better with having a higher cadence and really staying on top of the pedals, or if you're a masher and you just do better just grinding it out. So it's tough to choose gear.
You say that, and I just imagine Lukas Strain with the burliest gear through the 4 feet of mud, just rah, but actually just being hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Yeah.
That's funny. So when you went into, I guess 2 questions. Cyclocross single speed, is it all genders, or is it just male, female? How is it? Because it's a smaller category, and it depends on where you are in the world.
Right. Yeah. Because if you're in Portland, single speed category is the highest attended category.
And maybe in the nation, is it maybe one of the higher?
It's got to be in the nation.
It seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, on the race day itself, it's definitely the highest attended category.
Oh.
And so there are enough. Yeah, within a cross crusade, there are far more single speeders than there are in the Pro 1-2 category.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's great. So we have enough in Oregon that the 2 categories can be split. And some regions where there are some single speeders but not a lot, they might just have one open single speed categories, and other times they don't have anything, and you just gotta saddle up and ride your single speed with the Pro 1-2 field.
Oh wow. Yeah, so it's very location and event based. It's you never know what you're gonna. So sometimes you get kind of screwed then, because I would, or not, I don't know. That's actually,
if you're really, it depends upon your perspective and what you get out of racing, but
true.
You could be screwed, or you could be stoked and see it as you gotta race so much harder and so much smarter because you're racing against people with an advantage that have gears and you don't. So there's definitely a couple different spins on it, and I love the challenge of having to go toe to toe with people with gears.
Yeah, so and then actually that kind of it sounds like then you were able to shift your perspective on racing, and now how do you sort of perceive, like, what is your perception of it, of your experience entering a race or going through a race?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Because it's even been magnified being on a single speed now, because I've chosen now
Oh.
to race single speed in Pro 1-2 categories, and like my perspective is now like, this is my equipment and I ride it because I like it, and it means this race is going to be harder for me, and I don't know who I'm going to be racing and what they're coming with, and I just have to ride like to the best of my ability with what I have. And it makes racing so much more interesting for me to know that I'm at a deficit sometimes, and know that that means that I have to make up for it in other ways, has made racing far more rewarding.
Yeah, like it almost pulls yourself out of the equation in a sense. You're like, it's just so flipped on its head that it's not about me or winning or this or that. It's kind of just about the experience of. Does it feel like you're kind of racing against yourself in a sense?
Yeah, so much of it. I mean, especially when there's so many margins for error with cyclocross, like,
Oh, interesting.
you can miss your pedal on the start line, and like the entire race is just over. Like, you'll never see those top 5 ever again. And or you can, dab and have to unclip on an off-camber hillside, and there go 5 places too. So it's like, it's so much about yourself. Like, no one else is controlling those things that you're in control of when you're riding a technical section, or you know um it's so much more individual and about yourself than something like road racing, where you have to like key off of other people, and your fitness compared to everyone else's is really important, and has a lot to do with your enjoyment in the race, where like cyclocross is kind of come as you are, which is what I love about it. Like, you can be, you know, winning by 30 seconds, or you could be being lapped for your 3rd or 4th time, and you're still, emitting the same effort, and you're still on the same race course. And that's really cool.
It's the how does the professional is there are there teams for cross? Like, so you
Yeah,
went from road, it's like a team, it's a whole thing, and then you cross, but is it
there
individual?
there are definitely teams in cyclocross, and definitely programs. I think there are less like team tactics that are executed in a cross race,
Totally.
because the teammates are very rarely like racing near or around one another. Um,
Because everyone for themselves, like, cool.
kind of, yeah. uh, and and there are far more like privateers, or people that race alone without any teams in cyclocross than there are with road. Like, with road, it's really hard to be a privateer and just be not on a team, because who's going to be in the feed zone for you? Like, if you have a mechanical or a flat, or you need to go back to the team car for bottles, there's no team car. Like, you're on your own and unsupported, and it's hard to do that.
Interesting. Privateer, that's the term for like
Yeah,
a
I would
soloist.
consider myself to be a privateer.
Oh, really?
You're a privateer, Dustin. Do you know that?
Yes, I am a solo tier for sure. No teams over here. But wait, do you really consider yourself a privateer now?
Yeah. I'm not on a team. I now have a group of partners and sponsors that support me individually in different facets.
Yeah.
And that feels really good, because this certainly isn't true of all teams, but I know, and I've experienced team settings where it feels like it's a bad thing to be an individual and a person, and you're just meant to be like
Wow.
a cog, and like, you're just meant to be part of the machine. And like, it felt hard to be on teams before, where those parts of myself that I really liked and felt empowered by ended up being a hindrance to this bigger team picture. So being, working with sponsors and partners as something that I'm doing by myself feels so much better, because these people are only working with me because they see me and, appreciate those parts of me. And those parts of me are things that contribute to what they're trying to do too, versus me trying to like be on a team and meet their expectations. And it sounds like, it sounds, I guess, like kind of selfish that I just want, but that's where I am. Like, I want to work with people and brands that, see me and appreciate me and know my value and merit for what it is and not what it should or could be.
Yeah, I'm completely understand. I love the fact that you're doing that. I do the same thing. Like, I was really curious about this. Like, I wasn't sure if you were on a team, but you kind of seem like like an isolated athlete, but I didn't know if that actually existed in cycling. Is it kind of
tons.
Is it uncommon?
Especially in off-road things.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, naive question. Wait, do you race mountain bike stuff now?
Yeah,
okay.
I did a few mountain bike races before I had a really bummer crash in the beginning of XC season last year, or more at the beginning of XC season last year. So I haven't like had a chance to like try to keep doing it and get better at it, but I got healthy and ready just in time for racing to not ever happen again in 2020. So it's okay.
Hashtag Rona.
It's funny that like a lot of athletes are like this year being like, oh my gosh, like what happens if I don't get a race this year? Like, and I have commitments with sponsors and I have these things that I have to do that I was counting on doing, and like what if none of those things get to happen? And like I was there last year. Like, if you've ever been in, had a crash or an injury that's severe enough that you don't ride or exercise for a couple months, like, what that's like, and you're ready for this dialogue in your brain of like, yep, it might not happen, might not ever happen this year. Like, lucky if we can ride together,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like the plight of the athlete or like elite athlete is injury is just, I'm constantly playing with fire. So no one can be surprised when it's like, oh, I'm hurt. It's like, yeah, you're fucking always dabbling on towing that line of like being hurt,
Yeah.
So does mountain bike racing, are there teams in that, or is that more like solo? There is.
Yeah, there are off-road programs for sure that get really like a really great amount of support, and
Gray?
A lot of those mountain
great. Did you say great or gray?
Great.
Oh, okay.
Super good.
A very gray amount of support is pretty questionable out there. It's cup of water, that's kind of it. Pat on the back, maybe.
Yeah. So it's a lot of the off-road programs do a lot of different disciplines. So they'll have like, a title sponsor that's a bike manufacturer and that makes bikes in all these different disciplines. So as a result, they'll have an XC team and an enduro team and a cyclocross team. So it's pretty cool.
Cool. Oh, wait, so seems like a good opportunity. Who is supporting you right now?
Funny you should ask. My bike sponsor for this year and moving forward is called Forecast Bicycles. They are hand-built bikes out of Vancouver, Canada. So
cool.
Pretty excited. My new XC bike comes in the mail any day now.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I'm working with them, and I work with Eliel and Oakley Bike. And
cool.
Hand Up Gloves,
Sick.
Whom I adore, and the wonderful folks at Easton and Raceface and Fox.
Oh, that's a pretty decent lineup.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's great. I'm very lucky
Yeah, congratulations. That's
for
awesome.
not having like done much in mountain bikes or, anything outside of single speed. Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Is that the plan? Are you, is the plan to try and, or are you interested in doing other types of races, or is it still just kind of doing what you're comfortable with? So yeah.
Yeah, my plan for 2020 before racing was to do XC racing, a pretty full calendar, and then to travel and race my single speed cyclocross bike for some bigger UCI cross races. Was my plan, and will be my plan moving forward if and when racing resumes. I am excited to compete at a higher level on my single speed, and like I've said, I feel like I race better on the single speed, and I might not get great results, but I know that I'll be there and in the mix, and I'll get a lot out of it personally by being challenged in that new way.
Yeah, it's cool. I like that you have kind of overcome this perspective. Your relationship to competing now sounds much healthier than it used to be.
Yeah, it feels really good, and I'm much more excited about just participating. And just participating doesn't mean that I won't be, it doesn't mean that I'll be like a silly speeder. That's, not that there's anything wrong with wanting to just go out there and have fun. It's amazing, and I love that part of cyclocross, that there's room and space for that. But I think that there's room for both, and that approach has been really enriching for me in bike racing.
I might have lost that one. I like that. It kind of reminds me of the thing, Chaz, when I was talking with him, multifaceted sort of ideas here going, is it's cool that to have support and not feel like you have to win. And it's really cool for these companies to, maybe they do, but it kind of seems like they don't expect like number one placement across the board. Like, it's just supporting this person who's just kind of showing up, doing the best they can, just being like the best version of themselves that they can. And it's almost like it's like this new type of athlete, and it's fucking cool because it's very relatable to people. It's still like elite and high performance, but it's not so results driven, which is cool. It feels like it's sort of like breaking this new mold of, I don't know, like influencer athlete type of person.
Yeah. I think that the industry is like seeing and acknowledging this type of person, because it turns out that like most people that are cycling enthusiasts and want to participate are inspired by like the moms that go race, or like someone that works 2 jobs and still gets out there and tries their best. And those are the people that we as cyclists connect with and are inspired by, and less so of these like untouchable world tour road racers that we have very little to no commonality with.
Yeah, for sure. But still, people like myself love to see like elite, because you're like, oh fucking, like they're graceful, they're powerful, like, and all of this reminds me of skateboarding. Like, people sponsor skaters not for fucking results. Like, who in that culture, that's like laughable. There are competitions, but it is not a top priority. So I really love that this is like, it feels like it's sort of happening a little bit with cycling on this level. Yes, cycling is very like competitive or race, I don't know how to say it, like driven, or like the racing is kind of the like video part of cycling as it is for skating. Like it's just a component of the culture. But I love that it's not so like needs to be number one, but still it's these people that are elite and they're crushing, and it's fun to just watch them. And then it's interesting too, the fact that it's almost, I would say maybe it's equal parts like the physical ability and then also the personality, I think, is a huge part of it. For Chaz, it's a great example. Like, he is such a personality. His persona is like a big part of the thing that like draws people to him and his support to him. So and I feel like a similar thing for you is it's not just this like flat, just race, like boring person. It's this multi-dimensional, unique, creative being that shreds on a bike.
Yeah, if bike racing culture could be, just could incrementally move towards skateboard culture, or what is, if the value is measured similarly, that'd be great. I think there'd be so much room for so many more people that wanted to contribute and be part of the narrative if it were like that. And when it moves towards that, I hope it does.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of fun to just like a thought experiment, like what would that be? Like, because you basically, like, we want to see this person do something that they're really good at, because it's beautiful to watch. It's like inspiring because they're so like advanced at it, and it can motivate you to do your version of it, like, their best effort to your best effort. It's not about it being the same. It's kind of that back and forth of like sharing that stoke, that motivation, like, oh cool, they do this rad thing, like I'm gonna do my version. And it, if you watch them both, you might be like, oh, that's different. It's but it's still like kind of chasing the stoke, chasing that fire. A little bit ranty, but I don't know what could that look like. Would it be, because mountain bike kind of has that. There's videos that people produce. Yeah, because mountain bike's funny though too, because it won't be like a brand that produces a video. Like skate has teams, which is right. A funny parallel to cycling. But like mountain bike and like skiing will do these like production companies or productions for videos, and they'll just have all these athletes in it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but maybe it could be like, I mean, I guess I think automatically like YouTube, like create your own content, be your own brand, and then, who wants to support the thing? We're looking for helmet sponsors right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please sign up for both Ivy and Dustin are looking for helmet support. So if you, I'm just kidding.
Actually, Dustin,
but
Oakley makes some pretty sick helmets these days. So
what's that?
Oakley makes some pretty sick helmets.
Oh, so Oakley is, I forget. So they're not just eyewear?
No, they're not just eyewear.
That's right. Okay.
They make awesome helmets, aero helmets and road helmets, and now trail helmets.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, with a really slick little like gutter for your sweat in the trail helmet.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, which I thought was like totally nerdy and unnecessary at first, and now I am obsessed with it.
Because then you don't have to wear, because that's one of the benefits of wearing a cap, is it's basically like a cool looking sweatband. Wait, okay. Why do trail helmets have the visor and road helmets don't? What the hell? The comments are going crazy.
I guess, I mean, I know it's for light. It's a sun thing. Maybe it has to do with like your position on the bike, and I know, just like, or the fact that when you're riding trail, the thing that's that makes it hard to see when you're riding trail is the changes in light. So moving in and out of shade and light, and so to just be able to block it out completely helps your vision quite a bit, in my opinion. Those like transitions between shade and light. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then I say cycling cap under a helmet. Isn't that it's almost like closer to your, I don't know. I'm just curious. Yeah.
But the visor thing is cool though, because there are levels, right? So you can like, oh shit, I just got exposed. You can totally flip your cap up, can't you?
Oh, no, not like the things. I'm just pantomiming what you're describing. I didn't know you could like click, 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 click.
Yeah, like that. So right, there are levels.
So,
but I mean, you could argue
but this
that you
level is like, oh, it's like it hasn't started yet. But at the end of the day, you're like, yeah.
Extreme X Games mode.
Exactly. That also is just funny. The like aesthetic, the cultural aesthetic difference between mountain bike and road is so stark. With like the pants and the fucking camelback and the helmet looks different, and you're like, why the fuck is this got to look so different? It's like the same thing, but bike is so funny.
Yeah. Well, it's so different, and then when you start riding in multiple disciplines like that, and like really kind of understanding why they do things like that, then you start like mixing and matching them, and then you're a super nerd. But like,
yeah, they're like, this person's super confused.
Yeah, for sure. Like riding trail in like a wool t-shirt feels amazing, and like you have like snacks in a hip pack, and then it's just so nice that like you're wearing a breathable shirt that like flaps in the wind. And then I would find myself like kitting up for a road training ride and being like, I don't want to zip up like and shove stuff in my pockets. Like I like to feel the breeze. So you start to like mix and match, and then everyone's confused by you.
Which is, I mean, that gravel is totally this like bastard child in the middle, because like Ron always does a hip pack, but then he'll do a jersey with it, and I'm like, well, what, you don't really need the one but the other. And then I love overshorts, but nobody else really does overshorts. Like, that is one of the things that's super awesome about gravel, is it's everything goes, and it's so awesome because it's like whatever floats your boat, like it's good to go.
Yeah, equipment, ability level.
Yeah,
like
totally bikes.
Yeah.
Although I would say I see mostly road helmets. That's one I never thought about that till now. It's funny, if you see a mountain bike, a trail helmet on a road bike, it looks funny. Like, I mean, not to say, you take that one step out of cycling, we all look fucking hilarious. But inside that little circle, whatever.
It's like putting your Crocs in X Games mode and putting the strap behind your heel. Like, you're down to get rowdy, but right.
That reminds me, on one of the OMTM rides, there's a dude that runs flat pedals and Crocs.
Hell yeah.
So mind-blowing.
That's a vibe. I like it.
Dude, that's gnarly. They're like squishy and then I don't know. Much respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny. I feel like a little lull here maybe this is a good. Hold on. Today's episode's brought to you by Tasty Beverage. Oh God, that went everywhere. We're going to Liptic Hazy IPA today.
Oh, I just cheers to you. I have some
to
flash
your
wine.
wait. You're going.
Oh, wait, we can cheers like that. Yeah, here you go.
To the left. There you go.
There you go. Cheers. Ding. Oh, that's.
Oh, I need the sound effect.
That's precious.
That's cool.
You can go back. Yeah, you have guys to edit it, right?
Yeah, a whole fleet of
22-year-old interns that are just like
totally fresh out of college. Like, I want to conquer the world. I got about 17 of those. Although recently, someone did hit me up recently and was like, do you want me to edit your videos? And it's this full 50-50 split where I'm like, fuck yes. And then I'm like, fuck no. It's really weird. I'm like, it's kind of like the vibe is all about the editing, but it takes a ton of time. Of course, someone else could do it, and obviously someone could do it better.
Yeah, but also, like, how do you tell someone what your style is? Like, for something like video editing, and, like, can they know, do they see it? Like, I feel like you have a very distinct, like, style to the way that your videos are formatted, and, like, it would have to be someone that, like, really was already, like, a fan and sees it, I guess.
But the thing is, what does the style look like? There's, like, hundreds of videos that show what the style is. I'm not like, if you're really, I would say that most people coming out of college are probably like several levels above me in competency for editing, that they could be like, oh, this guy edits like a 4-year-old. Like, the simplest, like, got it. I could only imagine if you're an editor, you got to do like, okay, a documentary vibe, or like an action movie thing, or like, I just make one thing. Like, I can't imagine, like, it's like being a musician and playing all these different genres.
Yeah, or like doing web development as a minor like 7 years ago, and now with all of the like languages for now I like look at the source code of a page and I'm like, ah, yes, this computer page is made of internet. Like, I don't know anything anymore. Like,
oh, is that what you went to school for? Was coding?
It was part of my minor. My major was communication studies, and I minored in web development and journalism.
Oh, this seemed like very, as I feel like a parent would be like, all right, you'll find something with that.
Yeah. I was like, I am going to spend a lot of money on this. How many things can I, like, how many ways can I make job paths for myself from this? So it was more, the journalism and web development thing was more of like a media umbrella type of minor. And in retrospect, I shouldn't have spent any energy on the web development thing because, like, do you remember MySpace? Like, I used to put like a effect code into my MySpace and then be like, oh yeah, I can code. Sick. Yeah, I know what to do. So like, that doesn't necessarily mean that I should have, considered it as a potential career path.
Like, I love making my font bigger.
Yeah, I love putting snow on my MySpace because I'm 18 and it's wintertime. Like, but yeah, I hear you. Editing sounds tough, and these kids probably know far more than we do about everything.
That's true. Yeah, that's my mind goes in all kinds of versions of just getting. As you go through the path of life, you start understanding all the like, oh, and then you're like, oh, and then you see someone younger and you're like, oh, they're in this, but then they think I'm weird because of this, and I am weird because of that. It's just like, man. Oh, and this goes to like one of my favorite, I guess this is a pet peeves, but whenever anybody, this applies to every single person except the oldest person in the world, whenever anybody says, oh, I'm so old now, to anybody that's older than that person, you sound like a fucking fool. Yeah. It's just, think about it. Separate for just a hot second. You're like, so what does that say about all of these other people that have...
It doesn't say like it's a bad thing. Like...
Exactly. Like...
Getting older.
Like, oh, are you...
Or not, I guess. But, I like getting older.
That is so refreshing to hear. Because... I feel like so many people, the narrative is like complaining about it. You're like, shut up. It's inevitable. Like, what? The other alternative is to just stop. Like, there's no other thing. It's always getting older.
Yeah. Why, like, corrupt your spirit by, like, hating yourself for getting old and instead just being like, here are more opportunities to grow from all of this shit that has happened and be better for it.
I like that. Yes. Yeah, and I guess, is that called... I feel like this is dangerous, but is that called wisdom?
Uh-oh, careful. That is dangerous.
I think wisdom is like a weird one because it feels almost like what we were talking about with like the corruption of competition, the like poison thinking. Like thinking that I'm gaining wisdom is like, feels like a slippery slope of, I don't know. There's something about it that like, it sounds really enticing. Like, yeah, I want to have as much wisdom as possible. But it sounds like not, I don't know how to articulate that.
No, it seems like there's a balance of like, seeing this stuff that we can learn from and grow from and turning it into wisdom versus like actively pursuing it to the degree of like that's what you're after. I think there's maybe a balance and a bit of a difference.
And like never I don't think, how do I say it? Like not wanting to be wise, or like if you think that you have wisdom, you're kind of missing it. But it's people, wise people don't think that they're wise.
Yeah, I agree with that. Wise people, I think, know that there's a lot more things that could happen, and a lot, a great number of different events and perspectives that are there.
Yes, and that you have, and things that you have no idea about. There's so much that we'll never know. Like there's no one's ever going to know it all.
And that we won't be able to know as white people in North America. There are many perspectives that like we can hear of and try to understand that we can't attribute to wisdom.
Huh, that's an interesting, that sounds like the race thing too, is like we'll never understand it all, but there's finding like a certain amount of, because also it's kind of overwhelming, like, whoa, we're never going to be able to understand everything. Yeah. Sounds obvious, but which sounds also like, oh, am I always going to be like dumb then because I won't be able to understand it all? But just knowing that you can't understand it, there's like a certain amount of freedom in that to just, I don't know what that part is, to just just be okay with where you're at.
Yeah.
Sounds
I agree with that.
Sounds like, and then there's a cat hanging and they're wet and you're just like, hang in there.
And it's like, hang in there.
Yeah, you got it, little buddy.
Yep.
Maybe we should end it on the motivational poster.
Yeah, I feel really good. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I think that's about. All right. Let's see. How do we wrap these things up? I forget. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. If you would like to learn more about the inner workings of Ivy's life, check her out on Instagram at Ivy Audrain. And we'll see you here next week. Same time, same channel. Bye.